there's no restitution, babe. I'll never return to the person I once knew. Don't say you made no contribution, babe. I let you burn right through. My heart isn't fireproof. And if I focus for a moment on the day that we met and really pay attention to the words that you said, would I recognize the compromise would really only ever mean my sacrifice? If I wasn't so distracted by the shape of your lips, the curve of your smile, the sound of you listing all the ways you worship me, maybe I would figure out exactly where my world and I told you I'd work on it. Now I've forgotten who I am. I let you burn me down, but I'm taking back my crown. You use me like I am a prop to paint a pretty picture of the person you're not. You can fool them and kid yourself. Can't wait to hear you blame this on my mental health. It's true, I was crazy for you, but you're not what I thought. You were just pretending, yeah. Oh, I must admit, I wanted to believe in a perfect match. The fairy tale distracted me from all your lies. Yeah, I was blind till your true colors flashed. Now you got me seeing red. Oh, that you won't keep unless I'm trying to leave. No, there's no happy ending here, and I'm done spending tears for all we had, 'cause now all I see are red flags. Yeah. I'm seeing red. Yeah, you got me seeing red. Yeah, I'm on to you. Oh, I must admit, I wanted to believe in a perfect match. A fairy tale distracted from all your lies. Yeah, I guess I was blind till your true colors flashed, and now I'm seeing red. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. No, there's no happy ending here. I'm done spending tears for all we had, 'cause now all I see are red flags. I'm seeing red.
All right. That is a little Joliet 4 with Red Flags. Available on Spotify. Her music is all written and performed by her. And she's honestly fantastic. Love her music. Was happy to contribute to get that album made. So how's everyone doing this evening? Welcome to the TTRPG Theater. I am your friendly neighborhood Phantom NJ, and I hope you're having a good Thursday. I hope you're having a good week. This week's been a little bit of a struggle. Couple weeks have been a little bit of a struggle. It's been really, really busy, and energy levels have not been where I normally would like them to be. But we're here. It's Thursday. There are things to talk about. Oh my goodness, there are things to talk about. Where the hell do we even begin? We probably should begin by bringing up my window so that you can all see that I'm here talking. Hey, 491 Phantom, Green Brothers Phantom. Glad to have you here with me. Hope your week is going well. Hope your Thursday is going well. So, I was trying to figure out what we were going to talk about tonight and came up with the idea for additions, subtractions, subscriptions, and reforging. I was going to add another word in there with R, but I was like, this title is getting entirely too freaking long as it is. So I decided to, cut it somewhat short there. Still at work, even, oh goodness, I remember those days. Got to get everything organized for the inventory, or is that's what's going on there? I don't miss having to do inventory related stuff. Yeah. All right, so we're taking a quick ad break. So now is a perfect time to for the purpose of so people don't miss things. To remind everyone that this channel is sponsored by Trollord Games. Trollord Games, makers of Castles and Crusades, Amazing Adventures, Victorious, and a couple of other things. Really, really good people, and we're gonna be talking some stuff tonight related to them. It's been a busy time. There's a lot of stuff going on in the CNC world, in the TLG world. I would like to mention that we do have a giveaway tonight. The giveaway should be active. Exclamation point ticket to enter. It is a $10 digital product coupon. Good for any PDF. Good to put towards any PDF off the Trollord Games website. So where do we start? All right, let's talk about additions a bit. Yeah, I've talked in the past, and maybe not necessarily even on here, but just in general, talking to people and in all the various discords about the fact that I started in the early '80s with the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition. As you may know, there wasn't the only version of Dungeons and Dragons out. There was the quote unquote basic set, which was really just D&D without the. Jay, Lord Gazumba, thank you so much for the subscription. And I know you are going tonight, and we will be seeing you at that point. Yeah, I started in the early 80s with AD&D First Edition. It was the first game that I ever got to play. It was the first game that I ever ran. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was something, the whole concept was something brand new. It was something to allow my imagination to run wild, and I was really happy with it. And okay, Outer Realms RPG, Uncle Robert. Right. Is that Mike? Is that you? Because I think I remember your Discord name changing. Oh boy. So yeah, there we go. Yep. All right. I thought so. I noticed the change today to the Discord, and good to see you, sir. Glad to have you in chat. So yeah, I started with AD&D, and I was thrilled to have it. I read the DM. I got the DMG was the first book that I bought, and I think I read that thing forward and backward before we actually got the player's handbook, so that I could fully run games for ourselves and not be reliant on going to see our cousin every once in a blue moon to play. I will admit, and this is not news to anyone who knows me. For me, I will admit that, first of all, AD&D, for me, Gary Gygax was, his name was synonymous, as it should be. His name was on all the books. And I was just like, if you had asked me, I was a kid, I wasn't paying too much attention, but I was pretty, I thought, he had written most of it, and I'm sure that a good portion of it was. But I ran into a problem with Unearthed Arcana. Unearthed Arcana introduced changes that I didn't like. It was, and I was still new to the whole gaming thing. I didn't have Dragon Magazine. I think I had like an issue or two. It was just one thing that I could not afford. I mean, it was having a regular subscription to Dragon magazine was just not on the table. Not if I wanted other things. And so I prioritized getting the books as opposed to magazines. So, I didn't get to see any of this stuff ahead of time. I didn't know what was coming. And suddenly, there was a new stat introduced that I loathe to this day. The comeliness stat, I could go chapter and verse as to why I think it's just kind of silly. If you like it, you like it. For me, it's a useless stat. Doesn't really do anything. And it doesn't even, honestly, from objectively speaking, I can make an argument that it doesn't even make sense. And that argument is really not that hard to make. But that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. So there's that. Then there was the introduction of the Cavalier. I don't necessarily have a problem with the Cavalier itself, though, as the late Len Lakofka, best put it, what about that damn horse? That caused problems. My issue was the Cavalier was introduced as I don't remember if they were calling parent classes or major classes, but you had originally it was fighter, fighter, thief, cleric, magic user were the main classes. Then you had subclasses. Your first character was a Cavalier. Okay, listen, I was when the Cavalier first came out, I was like, this is cool because I was a kid who loved Arthurian. I loved Arthurian tales, so Knights of the Round Table and all that. The idea of having knights and mounted combat, on the face of it was fine. But then you put it, then they put it in as the parent class, an additional parent class, and moved paladins from underneath fighters to underneath Cavaliers, which introduced several problems. One, all paladins were suddenly knights as well, effectively. They were pure. It was pure like Arthurian style, or even we call it even not Renaissance period, but Crusades period. Types classes. The ranger that became a Cavalier. That's an interesting switch. The other problem you had was suddenly the paladin had to qualify statistically as far as their attributes for, in addition to their 17 requirement for their charisma that they already had, now they needed to match all the Cavalier stats. I don't know about you, but the Cavalier for me, it was hard enough to qualify as it is. Unless you had a DM who was willing to just give you the minimum, if you didn't qualify off the top of the bat, would raise your the stats that you needed to be to the absolute minimum requirement for a Cavalier, your top, pick your top stats. Suddenly you needed to have that plus your charisma for a paladin, which, if a player would bring you a character, in those days, if a player brought you a character sheet with those stats rolled up, and said this is what they rolled, you would be like, nope, you're going to roll your character again because you wouldn't believe them. I mean, right or wrong, you just wouldn't believe them because they were, the stats needed to be that high. It was a mess. It was something that didn't need to be done. The Barbarian, I honestly like the Barbarian class. I know there were issues with the fact that barbarians and magic users being in the same party was a major issue. I understand that. You could run different types of games, and I think there was a point where I kind of just decided to sort of ignore that in my games because I did like the barbarian, and making it so that a party couldn't run together on anything other than alignment based just drove me up the wall. The acrobat, I mean, honestly, if it wasn't for the D&D cartoon at the time, would anybody have ever rolled an acrobat? Just one of those things where it's like, okay, I mean, granted, more options are better than no options, as long as they're all reasonably in line in terms of power. But it just there were things I don't remember what else, but those were the main things that really bugged me about Unearthed Arcana. And it got to the point where it's like, all right, so the bloom was off the rose a little bit. I was still having fun playing. Don't get me wrong. I'm still having fun running games. It was just I no longer took that what I was getting in any given book was good. Not understanding what was going on in scenes behind at TSR. It was a little bit of surprise when the Dungeoneer Survival Guide came out, and it was the first book that I remember not having Gary's name on the cover. So that was an interesting switch. But then the stuff that it introduced, it was like, okay, some of it was okay. It was. I didn't mind it. It was adding flavor, and plus dungeon crawls and cave crawls and stuff. The information introduced there I thought was pretty good. The Wilderness Survival Guide then came out, and I was like, all right, they're running out of ideas. Wilderness Survival Guide to me really felt like a lot of filler. Maybe it was just the fact that it was, I was looking for something else, and there just wasn't enough in the book that was of interest to me in order to justify the money that I was spending on it. I did buy it. I'll be the first to admit that I bought it. But I was like, at this point, I was like, yeah, I don't even remember where I had heard rumors that there was a second edition coming. If there might have been, I can't tell. It might have been somebody that I knew at the time had mentioned it was coming. I think I might have been in high school at that point, and I was ready. I had no idea what was going on with Gary and him being forced out of TSR. Second edition arrived, and I loved it. I loved, there was a lot of things that it fixed. There was a lot of things. It didn't go, out completely hog wild in making changes. I think the changes that it made sense. It kind of consolidated a lot of stuff that they had been adding to first edition, but in a more structured way. And so, in second edition, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Going to straight up using Thaco as opposed to combat tables, made life easier. I know, people use Thaco for first edition too, but in first edition, I remember checking combat tables because you had stuff versus different armor types and all that. I just, second edition, when it came out, I loved the cover art. I love the artwork. I thought, I like the fact that they had the blue coloring in the books. It was all good. About the only thing I wasn't crazy about, and it wasn't that I hated it. It was the fact that I just knew it was going to be a problem, and eventually it was the binder, the binder thing for the Monstrous Compendium. That was not a great idea. It just, sure, it was nice being able to take out, the sheets that you were going to need for monsters for any given thing and just have them with you as opposed to opening the book. But the binders themselves were not the sturdiest thing. The sheets would tear. It became a headache. Because if I remember, you actually had to tear the sheets out of something. I'm trying to remember. At least for the initial one. The other, the supplemental books or the supplemental things came prearranged, and I put them in there, like the Greyhawk supplement, the Forgotten Realm supplement, all that. I put those all in their own separate binders. Still have them in the same separate binders that they were in 20, 25, 30 years ago. So that, that's pretty cool. Yeah. And then they came out with the, complete book of, and for the classes, for the races, that added a hell of a lot. Class kits were introduced. Some were, you had to keep an eye on those, but they were considered optional. Everything in those books was optional. You had your core books, then you had your optional books, and there was a clear line of distinction. So, it was much easier to make the case to my players that this was not going to be allowed because this thing's just broken. I know there was a couple of Paladin kits that were kind of broken. There might have been a couple fighter kits that were broken, and it was what it was. But I liked the level of detail, level of information that was provided. It made things more interesting. So for me personally, second edition, very positive change. It's not that I suddenly hated first edition, but there are a lot of things that over time I realized needed to be fixed and redone and reworked. And for me, second edition did that. Now, I know that later on, they came out with player's option books that kind of introduced 2.5. I own one of them. I still don't, for the life of me, remember buying the thing. I'm pretty sure somebody gave it to me. I think it was Combat and Tactics. I never used any of those black books, the 2.5 edition, whatever it was, because I had what I needed. I had everything I needed, and I had, all the content that I could put for 2E. I still own more 2E stuff than anything, and that's saying something for those of you who know how many Castles and Crusade supplements I have. Yeah. So, we talk about editions, and a new edition can be a positive change. I'll let you decide for yourself. I never got into 3 because more timing of life. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was a conscious decision to not go into 3, third edition at the time. It was not a conscious decision to skip over it completely. That happened more of a thing of life. Going to 4th edition was a radical change, coming from 2 going to 4. And then going from 4 to 5, there were some good things about it. There were some bad things about it. And then there was some stuff that I didn't realize was bad until 5th edition moved on for a bit. Honestly, the stuff that was bad wasn't so much stuff that 5e was doing. It had more to do with stuff from 4e that they just left in 4e. They should have brought over and didn't. But that's a different argument. So why am I bringing all this up? Well, as you all know, I run Castles and Crusades here regularly, or semi-regularly, as part of my we call it Embers of Empire campaign. That's what the campaign is based on. And they have now started the Kickstarter for it was labeled as Castles and Crusades Reforged. Long story short, the new printing, the new printing for each of the 3 core books, Player's Handbook, Castle Keeper's Guide, and the Monsters and Treasure, removing all the OGL content. You can make the argument, I'm not here to argue whether they should or should not have done the printing. Listen, for each and every company, when the whole OGL debacle happened, and then, later, WotC/HadPro decided to kind of back off and do this whole, hey, George, good to see you. Glad you could make it. So, when the OGL debacle happened, and then they backed off, and then they did the new OGL and released the Creative Commons and all that. It was kind of up to each company to decide for themselves what they wanted to do and what their comfort level was. Now, there's been a number that have gone a completely different direction. Paizo, notably, they didn't have much OGL content left. So, it was kind of easy for them to get rid of what little they have and move on. Now they helped release the Orc license, which I've looked it over. I'm not an expert on the Orc license. I couldn't tell you how good or bad or what. It sounds like it's good. I've also heard there are minor quibbles with it. I'm not a lawyer, so I couldn't tell you. But there's been other groups that have been signed up, and it's been released to the community As I understand it, Paizo doesn't even control the license. That's my understanding of it right now. There's this own thing where it kind of makes it so that it's kind of really an open source license in the fact that, downstream content needs to be released under the same license. So people can't start taking advantage of the license and then closing off their own stuff when they're making it under the license. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not quite sure, how well it works or does the things that it claims to do. There are companies that are just too far into 5e, and they realize that it's still the most popular game. And they've gone with the new OGL. There, you have the new I think Tales of the Valiant coming, that's out now, which is effectively, it's a 5e game. There are a bunch of 5e variants that are their own game based on 5e, and that's fine. If your comfort level with it is good, that's up to you. Troller Games made the decision that they did not want to take a chance on the OGL again, and they switched directions. They stopped and revamped the Kickstarter, or actually this one was on Indiegogo. It was crowdfunding for the new Amazing Adventures printing, which has made that printing very, very, very delayed, but it will be free of OGL content when it comes. The player's handbook is out and available to those who are on the Kickstarter. Has been distributed. And eventually, hoping soon, it will, make its way out. So with it, we're also getting, again, the 3 core books for CNC. Just recently, this week. Hey, Rymus, good to see you, my friend. Yeah, it's not different enough from. Well, I don't think it's supposed to be that different from 5e. That was kind of the vibe that I got. Maybe I didn't look closely into what they were promising. I know of a few games that are 5e, but just don't rely on 5e 5e classes and such. They're their own thing. I thought Tales of the Valiant was going that route, but I could have been wrong. Once I had heard the 5e connections, it's just 5e is a system, and it has nothing to do. Well, I mean, let's put it this way: it makes it easier, but it had my not wanting to run 5e anymore. I can honestly say isn't a facet of it being a WotC/Hasbro product. The system itself, I've run into enough mechanical issues that I can't fix without having to completely overhaul it. And I've looked at the alternative systems, and when you start looking at the alternative systems for 5e, it's like, why am I bothering? I should just run a different game. So, like I said, CNC, they released the new player's handbook to those who did a pre-sign for it. And there are things that have changed that I'm going to be very, very careful here, because it's not the final copy. I'm not going to talk about things that are just not working at the moment. It's like if you get the if you are one of the people who get the thing, yes, the bookmarks are currently screwed up. That's not a big deal. That's something to worry about later. I don't care that the bookmarks are as they're aware of it. They're going to work on it. I'd be worried if the bookmarks in the digital format were screwed up when the final was released, but that's not a thing now. I don't have an issue really with the renaming of spells. I get it. I don't think, I can understand not wanting to take any chances, because let's face it, they've said it and it's true. WotC and Hasbro can throw a hell of a lot of lawyers at you, and even if you have the legal leg to stand on, There are, it may not be worth the fight because they're just going to bury you in lawyers, and it just costs money. I will be, and I'm on record, and I've made my position clear to them as well. As the removal of spell stat blocks bothers me. It bothers me the more and more I look at it. I think it is going to slow down the game tremendously. I know there's talk of putting in a table, but and somebody brought up the fact that a table, having it as a table is is okay. I mean, I guess it's a compromise, but I don't really want the stat block in a table that is separated from the actual spell. And I'm gonna bring up the book right here, and we're gonna take a look at, and let me bring that up. Make sure that's maximized. So let's go down to the spells. So we're going to start off with the very first spell, because this is a rename of the most well-known, probably one of the most well-known spells in D&D, right after Fireball. This is, oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. It's not it doesn't start with the most name. This is a different one. This one is actually renamed after a very Greyhawk spell. Or actually, initially was a very Greyhawk spell created for Luke Gygax's character. It's Acidic Bolt, which was Melf's, in D&D was Melf's Acid Arrow. And then I probably eventually came Acid Arrow, but let's see. There we go. Wait, did I miss? All right, we have Acidic Bolt. Am I wrong? Was Magic Missile not renamed Arcane Bolt? Now I'm very confused, so we'll go to Wizard Spells. Oh, that's awesome. The first level wizard spell still has Magic Missile as Magic Missile. What? Magi? Oh, no. I'm sorry. I thought they were changing it to Arcane Bolt. They just changed it to Magi's Missile. Wizards, you cheeky buggers, you. Hold on a second. So, yeah, all right, this wasn't quite what I was expecting, but let's go take a look at Magi's Missile. So where normally you would have, right at the start, you have the, you'd have the spell block where it would have, the range, casting time, number of targets, and so on and so forth, as well as the damage. Here we get a description, and someone likened it to one of those, online videos for a recipe where they give you the long story about their grandma's kitchen before they get to the stuff, and they're like, "What we want the information firsthand right at the start." But anyway, it goes into the spell description, and then what would be in the stat block is in different colors. So you'll notice it says at first level, and first level is in that I call it like burnt sienna color. I guess it's maybe a light brown. I'm not sure. Has one missile. And then they talk about They gain 1 missile, extra missiles for every 2 levels of experience. So at 3rd level, they can unleash 2, and at 5th level, and I don't know. My brain, it's maybe it's because I know that they're using the color changes to highlight and kind of draw your attention to the fact that, okay, this is new information that you need here. But it also makes reading it difficult for me because my eyes keep going back. I don't know about other people, but my eyes keep going back to the other, the beam. Is it a beam or missile? Well, funny that you mention it. The spell projects a beam of energy colored as the caster desires. Oh, George, you're going to get me in so much trouble. Wait a minute. Is it a magic beam in previous editions or previous printings, or is that where they first mentioned it here? Because what? Because you're right. That's not a magic missile. Oh my goodness. That should probably say a bolt of energy instead of a beam of energy. Because that would make sense. A beam of energy is not a missile. So, yeah. But again, the way the color changes are used, it's distracting. It makes reading it difficult, and honestly, it's not saving space because the text after the spell thing should basically be putting details that don't fit well in the stat block, as well as little details and maybe a little explanation of what it looks like. It's painful. And here's where we come into an issue. I really do. I do love CNC. Don't get me wrong. I don't want this to sound like I'm suddenly down on CNC. But one of the things that attracted me to CNC, and the main thing that attracted me to CNC, was the fact that it had that 1E/2E feel, but with a unified dice rolling system that made it a lot easier to teach other people. The Siege engines, the unified dice mechanic, made it easier to teach other people. It made it quicker to run games. Made it quicker to adjudicate things. And it does give the players some more freedom because they're not being, they're not limited to what is on their character sheets. And to be honest with you, I was never huge on limiting people to what was on their character sheets to start with, even in the 1E, 2E days. Because non-weapon proficiencies were fine. I thought the non-weapon proficiencies, to be honest, were those things that you were really, really good at. Not the only things you can do. Those were things that you were trained in to some extent. But moving away from the formatting of 1E/2E is a move away from that feeling that, that familiarity that, it's been described as the spiritual successor to AD&D. And as much as I hate to say, this moves you away from that. The things that you expect to see when you're playing that kind of game, stat blocks are huge things. It was one of those things that I was not crazy about What was it? 5e, I think is in spells. There's just, I want my stat blocks. I want that quick, easy access to the information, and then look in the text for the things that are is different or that can't be captured there. I don't have an issue with things like what is it? Alignment now being called discernment or disposition, I should say. So disposition represents the most basic and essential aspects of a character's worldview and moral outlook. Disposition is a description of the fundamental moral outlook of every sentient creature. Is the character good or evil, chaotic or lawful? They may even be neutral. I think this paragraph is in need of editing because it just kind of says the same thing multiple ways. Disposition is a very basic description and acts as an ethical, motivational guide for characters, non-player characters, and monsters. Now, one good thing that I want to give credit, because one good thing about disposition is, even though disposition and alignment should technically mean the same things, to me, disposition is more of a, hard fact that alignment seems to be taken for granted for being. You're lawful good. That means you never do anything chaotic. You never do anything other than good. Disposition is more, generally speaking, this is the side you're on. It gets really weird when they put it in the table. Fact is, disposition is a result of a criminal sentence. Hey, Mike, good to see you, sir. They put it in a table and they start talking as far as descriptions. I like the fact that here's the good thing. Let's start off with the good thing. First of all, the fact that I like the verbiage disposition. I mean, could they have stayed with alignment? I think they could have, honestly. I don't know that. I mean, I know the idea is to get away from it. Whether they could have stuck with alignment, they might have been able to. I do like the fact that, yeah, it may be a matter of semantics. It's weird seeing this, and I think it may just be something I need to wrap my brain about. The fact that they're no longer seen as adjectives. It's more, this is the zone that you're in. It's more of, this is the area that your disposition, each disposition is now more a noun than it is an adjective, where, you had lawful good. I mean, good could be a noun, or it could be, or an adjective. Lawful is an adjective. So you had lawful good, you had chaotic good, lawful evil, neutral evil, whatever. It's really weird seeing good chaos or chaos good as a thing. One of the things that I'm enjoying about this, though, and on the positive side, because again, it's one of those things where I don't necessarily know that it needed to be changed. Though, for the purpose of doing what they did, it kind of does work. And Mike, I'm there with you there. Alignment as a tendency, is would be fine. Oh, Pat, sorry to hear that. That's not a good day. One of the things that I do find interesting here is that they do note that, on that tree or on that chart of like chaos and good, there's the idea that you can be more chaotic than good, or more good than chaotic. um, which one is, which side of it is more important to you? And it's going to take me some time to get the alignment key out of my head and the seeing them as adjectives. I'm slowly coming around to this. Do I think the change was necessary? Again, that it may be the need for a lawyer to better decide how, whether this is an OGL change that was necessary, because I kind of end up in the sort of same place. You're still using the same terms, just the variation on them, the as a noun versus an adjective. I don't know. And you're still going with the core good, law, good, evil, law, chaos, and such. And no, I agree with that, Ultra Magnus. It's definitely true. But I think I can eventually wrap my head around it. It looked really weird seeing it on the page for the first time. It's not Fireball. It's this. Oh, yeah, no, that's going to. I'd be putting a hard stop to any player who decides to say that to me. It's like, nope. I mean, you want to call it, you want to call it that, it's fine. You want to call it a Fireball. Let's put it this way: if we were all playing by the same, if we were all using the 10th printing and the non-OGL stuff, and somebody on my player says I cast Fireball, and when the spell is actually what is it? Flaming Sphere? I forgot what the renamed Fireball is. I think it's Flaming Sphere. Trying to remember what they called it in the middle of all this. I'm going to be fine. Like, I don't. First of all, my table is, don't tell me, don't try to run my table for me. So, heat glow. Well, Fireball was still Fireball apparently. That's interesting. Oh, heat glow. Oh man. Now, here's where things get a little much. I brought up the other day during the TLG stream, the fact that there is I have a lot of TLG content, that is still waiting for Kickstarters and various things to be, to come in. I've not yet backed this Kickstarter. I will be upfront about that. Will I probably do it at some point? Yes. Mostly because of the fact that eventually found, the $100,000 mark is for Foundry to be supported, and I do want to see Foundry supported. So as we get closer, I will probably be put in for that, because that's a personal interest for me, and I can put in at a level that will get me it, and I'm still comfortable with, and I know I'll still have the books. But not yet. I'm waiting to see some of the changes that are made. There's some stuff that's already been brought up as issues that need to be addressed. Like, I didn't notice it at first, but the order of the attributes was changed, and I should have seen this coming, but I failed to read the new revision for Amazing Adventures, where there was the change. For those of you who played D&D going back years and years, you remember that the character sheet used to have strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity, constitution, and charisma. I don't remember when it was changed. I think I don't know if it was during 3E or later, but somewhere along the line it was changed to strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, which for CNC actually works because, as you know, monsters saving throws, they either have physical or mental as their prime. Physical is the strength, dexterity, constitution. Anything that would require one of those saves. Mental is intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Anything that would require those, they use as their as far as a prime attribute for their saves. So that was fine. I noticed in the player's handbook, and then I went back and took Amazing Adventures and found out it was the same thing. That somebody had gone and moved the third one in both of those groupings to be the first one. So suddenly it was Constitution, Strength, Dexterity, Charisma, Intelligence, Wisdom. I brought it up, and it looks like it's going to be moved back. I will be keeping an eye on the next printing, or not next printing, but the next release for the player's handbook with whatever fixes come in to verify that it's been changed. I'm hoping, because I mentioned it, Amazing Adventures is the same issue. Like, please don't screw with stuff that doesn't need to be screwed with. Just, it doesn't need to be, that does not need to be changed. You're just, that's change for the sake of change. It's not, it would have made more sense if the, things like dexterity had been renamed agility. If you told me that dexterity needed to be renamed agility and constitution need to be renamed vitality or something like that for OGL purposes, I could buy that. Okay, but keep it in the same order. Make it clear that this is a 1-for-1 change. We're good. But yeah, so it's we're going through it and finding the things that need work. I do have a concern, because here's what ended up happening is suddenly a lot of the books that have come out over the last couple of years are now suddenly horrifically out of date. You have, and I don't remember, George, maybe you remember, was it the Player's Handbook? Was it the 8th printing of the Player's Handbook that brought us the new, what do we call it, the Player's Archive and the Adventure Spellbook, or was that a different Kickstarter? I know that they were, I know that they were basically levels, stretch goals for one of them, and I don't remember which one. Honestly, it might have been, I don't remember at all. But suddenly you have the Adventure Spellbook, which is completely out of, it's book's only a couple of years old, and it's suddenly a completely different format than the spellbook in the player, spells in the Player's Handbook. Monsters and Treasures of Air just came out with a new one. I'm hoping that, I don't remember whether the new Monsters and Treasures of Air is already in the new format. I'd have to go look. Maybe somebody knows offhand. I have to go peek at that, make sure, because if that's not, well, then you have another issue. And yeah, it's released a whole lot of uncertainty in the community, which is unfortunate. And I mean, I will give, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. The Troll Lords and, Steven and Chuck have been in, answering questions, and Steven especially has spent a lot of time, long periods answering questions and concerns in the Discord. But it's hard to deny that this is a shakeup, and we've yet to see. Oh, thank you, Pat. I appreciate that. We've yet to see, what the final, result of that shakeup is. Am I still going to keep running CNC? Yeah. And like I said, it's one of those things where it has to be talked about. I needed to talk about it because, it's one of those things I kind of need to get off my chest. But I don't want to sound like it's, we've been talking and no one's listening. They have been listening. I don't necessarily agree. Some of it, and again, I understand why they felt they needed to do this. It's just there's a lot of there's some unintended consequences. There's some consequences that probably were recognized, but in the scope of what they're trying to do and why they feel they need to do this. Again, I don't blame them because it's their, this is their baby. This is their main product. They don't want anybody, they don't want anybody else to be able to, wrest it from them. It's, and I can understand that they don't want anybody else being able to say, put them in a legal bind because of it. And if you know what they went through with the whole Gygaxian license and how it was pulled and how it took, some 15 years to get it back, you know that they've been hit by legal issues, dealing with lawyers in the past. So I get it. I do get it. I'm sympathetic to it. At the same time, I can't ignore the fact that it does cause issues because now there's a whole lot of money spent on books that are not in the same format. And even though the game should play the same. It really should. Now there's things that you need to do, extra steps you need to take to accommodate players who are going to be using the new books. And even CKs who are going to need to do some stuff for themselves as they're using the new books and the new content, just because not everything is in the same format. And frankly, they've got a lot of stuff out there. Anyone who's seen my CNC pile, if you looked at the folders I have, of the PDFs alone, you know that I've got a lot of stuff. And, now there's some translations that need to be done. And even when I just go use some of the older books, I need to be able to just do stuff in, some switching stuff in my head. Or now I'll need to look stuff up so that if I decide to use the new, non-OGL stuff, spells I'll have to change and so on and so forth. So we're all working from, playing from the same book, playing from on the same page. So it's exhausting. It's unfortunate. Hopefully, there's going to come a point where this will be the thing. The new non-OGL stuff will be this, be the thing. How long that's going to take, where the majority of the player base is using it, I can't tell you. Anyone who says they know would be lying. I mean, there are people who still play 1E and that's all they play. Because it's what they've enjoyed from the beginning. It's always worked for them. It still works for them. Fantastic. Play if that's what works for you and that's what you love. Great, awesome. Hell, I still enjoy playing 1E every so often. I wouldn't run 1E, but I love playing it. When I get the chance. So they're going to be people who are going to just insist on running the older. And again, we can't really. It's not technically an older edition. But it's going to have a split where there shouldn't really necessarily need to be a split, and it's unfortunate. At some point, there's already some 600 backers. I think we're close to 700 backers now of the Kickstarter, and at least half of them went in on either the full set of PDFs or the full set of printed books. So, there are plenty of people who have gone in all in on it. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to stop. It's a company that I like the people who work there. I enjoy the fact that they are so accessible. They are helpful. They've been a wonderful support for this channel. And, I just wish this didn't have to be a thing. Unfortunately there are some people who are, there have been some people who have just been completely disillusioned, and it's sad, but it happens. It's a fact of life. You're going to lose people along the way. Hopefully they'll find their way back. Maybe, I don't know. But you keep pushing forward. For me, I still have my campaign, and it figures just as the campaign was really kicking into high gears when this happens. Because this is what I needed. One more thing on my plate. But all of my players, the campaign itself is going to stay with the older edition for now, because they have, everybody has the books. If one of the groups decides that they'd really like to move to the new print, the new printing with the new non-OGL terminology, I'll accommodate it. I mean, I've got the player's handbook. That's all I need. At some point, I'll be honest with you, at some point, even if I don't go full in on it, I will pick up the new Monsters and Treasures at some point, mostly because of the fact that having a Monsters and Treasure that does not have all those Fae with the Celtic names that no one can pronounce unless you speak one of those languages. Yeah, that'd be great. It's a little slimmed down, and I think they've added some more creatures. I think that they were talking about that today. So that's fantastic. I'll probably end up getting that. I don't know if there's enough in the new Castle Keeper's Guide. I honestly don't know what's changed in the Castle Keeper's Guide, to be honest with you. I'm not clear on what's in there that is OGL. There's really been little talk. That one might be a wait and see. I know there's new artwork, because there's always new artwork, which is cool. I love new artwork. I'm not spending $40 for new artwork. Love you guys, but I've got there is a limit to the links I'll go. But yeah, it's an interesting time. They are, last check, they had blown past they're closing in on $90,000 earlier today, which is amazing since it's only been going for like 2 days now. So they are going to hit that 100K. I'm curious as to whether or not they add anything else at 100K. I don't need new art, Pat, at the moment. I was talking more general with the new Castle Keeper's Guide that's coming. It's going to have new art, but I don't know what else it's going to have in it. But yeah, it's an interesting time. So yeah, we I didn't even mention subscriptions. Speaking of interesting times, I've come to the realization that having a subscription method like Paizo does is both brilliant and a pain in the neck, because my Pathfinder 2E collection is now grown really large, and I need to cut it off. And I know that in September, I believe it's Player Core 2. Actually, I think one of the additional core books is coming in September. Oh no, actually, Player Core 2 is coming in July. I think there's an adventure path where the last book of the adventure path, last adventure part of the adventure path comes out in September. I think that's the point at which right after that I cancel my subscription, because I'm not even playing Pathfinder 2E right now. The game that I was playing in is on hiatus while we play some Break RPG. It would be my choice of game to play if I wanted to play more high fantasy, crunchy style game. But I'm not there, and I'm not doing it at the moment. So I don't need to be spending, money or trying to find space for all the stuff. I can always pick up whatever I need later. So yeah, I think it's about that time. Yeah, so let's see. Where are we in terms of the giveaway? All right. Well, if you want to get into the giveaway, exclamation point ticket. There are currently 2 entries for it. So right now your chances of winning are pretty damn good. I am going to close that out in about a minute. Ooh, I want to thank everybody for hanging out. Those of you who are chatting in channel, those of you who are lurking, listening in, whatever it is you're doing, I appreciate you showing up. Thank you for Pat for the bits. Thank you, Lord Gazumba, for the resubscribe. And I know I had a couple of people while in the last two streams that I was in. After I got a shout out, they followed me. So I don't know that either one of them or actually it looks like there's three of them. I don't think any of them are in right now, and I'm not going to call them out. But yeah, let's go and get ready to raid Lord Gazumba. If you could hang out while I get the stream ending thing going. And then I am going to set up the raid. And then I will do the giveaway. Raid has been started. As far as the giveaway goes, let's see. Closing giveaway now. And drawing a winner. 491 Phantom. Congratulations, Brother Phantom. You are today's winner. I will get that out to you right after the stream ends. Once again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for chatting, lurking. And see you on the flip side.